Good morning and welcome to our podcast. Today again is Tuesday. As usual, we record our podcasts every Tuesday for the most part, unless it's snowing in LA, so we're doing it on Thursdays. I have a special guest today. He's a friend, and I've known Ron for a long time. Ron Passaro from the Passaro Group. He's our assisted living specialist. Welcome. How are you?
Good morning. Very good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. So today's topic will be, not topic, but the discussion will be based, I would like to talk a little bit about, or educate our listeners or audience about, we all have old parents or grandparents or people who have somebody that may need sooner or later some sort of assistance with placing their loved ones or their neighbor or whoever it may be. And that's your specialty. So tell me, or not me, but tell us a little bit as to what is it? What is a placement agency? What is the role of a placement agency? How does it work? Like somebody calls you, I call, hey Ron, hi, how are you? We're highly recommended by so and so. Take it from here. What happens?
So the majority of the time, our objective is to help guide the family through the process of identifying the best options for their loved one. And that involves many different elements like how old they are, what their condition is, do they have dementia, where do they live, what their budget is, what type of person they are, and try to help them through everything that they will need before they move in, documentation, all of that. Because families many times are looking for the wrong things when they call me. So my objective is, again, through questions, to identify what type of person they are and how I can best assist them. It's their choice, but my objective always is to give them the best options to choose from, which is typically not 10 or 20, it's a few.
So when it's a few, what's a few?
The majority of the times it's 3, sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 4, depending on the different situation. It might be more than 3 if the family is going back and forth between, let's say, a good boarding care home and a large assisted living community, because they're not clear on which one it is, and I'm not clear, especially now during COVID, when a lot of the assessments and discussions are being done remotely.
So just for the clarification, and so the listeners understand, can you please define how you categorize an assisted living compared to a boarding care? What is your criteria? Okay, this is boarding care, this is assisted living. What is your criteria to define which one is which?
So, of course, hospitals are the highest level of care, and
Yeah.
then right below that is skilled nursing and rehab facilities. And then right below that is a boarding care home. So boarding care homes, a good one, like RAYA'S, that offer good care, they can give them more than assisted living communities that are larger. Assisted living communities might be anywhere from as small as 20 to 40 residents to as high as 150 or more. So those are more geared, for the most part, for people who can get around with a walker. Some are still in a wheelchair. The ones that benefit the most from the amenities and the activities of that community. The eating in a dining room, going and watching a movie, having a discussion, going on an excursion.
That's an assisted living.
That's an assisted living. A boarding care is, they have good ones, will still have interaction, will still have social activities, but they can offer a much higher level of care. If someone is bedbound or someone has advanced dementia and they really need to be monitored, they're a major fall risk, that's a big
But
one.
don't large-scale assisted living facilities have a memory care unit within their grounds?
They do, but the ratio that they have of their staff to the residents is much lower. If there's, let's say, 30 residents in a memory care, the ratio might be 8 to 1. In a good boarding care home, it's going to be 2 or 3 to 1. If there's 6 residents, you're going to have 2 or 3 caregivers during the day, and then 1 at night that's awake and constantly monitoring them. And again, if someone's a fall risk, which is a major problem for people with dementia, because they wake up in the middle of the night, they need a walker, they need a wheelchair, they have dementia, they don't know, they fall out of bed and they get hurt.
So just for the record, a boarding care and an assisted living they all carry the same license from the same licensing agency. Am I correct?
You are correct.
So it's the Department of Social Services.
That's correct.
Who supervises and
They're monitored by the state exactly the same way. Actually, boarding cares, when they visit them from the state of California, it's easier them to see if things are in compliance.
yeah, because
or
it's
not.
much smaller.
Exactly.
You don't have to walk through 4 floors.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly.
So can you share with us? First of all, how long have you been doing this?
10 years. We're in our 10th year.
Okay, so in the last 10 years that you've been doing as an assisted living specialist, can you share with us what kind of mistakes families or loved ones do when they search for a facility if they do not use a referral service or a placement agency?
Excellent question. I would say 95% of the time when a family or an individual is looking for some sort of assisted living, the two main factors that they focus on is it convenient, where is it located, and can we afford it? Those two things are relevant. They're important, but I always like to describe it as they're spokes on the wheel. They're not the wheel. When they come to a placement agency like ours, what we do is we first start with who is the person. So
Person as the resident?
Yes, the resident, the loved one in need. What type of care do they need so that they can be well cared for and safe? So number one is what care and safety is needed. And number two, what type of environment that they can possibly be happy, whether they have dementia or not. So if a person is, our motto is, if a person is well cared for and happy, they will thrive. So our process is we start with the care and the environment, and then we worry about how close can we get it to where the family wants it to be, and is it within their budget. If you do it the other way around, it raises the odds significantly that they're going to choose the wrong place. Almost 100% of the time when families call me that got referred to me that I didn't originally help, and their loved one is in a facility that's wrong, it's a place that was very close to where they lived.
So let me ask you this. Who reimburses for this? It's not the family, is it?
No, it's free of charge to the families. My agency, as an example, we cover a very big part of the San Fernando Valley, the West Side, and the South Bay. We have over 800 agreements. So we're objective. We're not funneling them to just a few places that we work with. And then if we help the family choose a place and their loved one moves in, that facility pays us a referral fee.
Okay, so here's my question. What happens if you, as a referral agency, has a client or a potential client or potential resident who needs placement, and you know that, let's just refer to it as facility ABC. The name of the facility is ABC. You do not have a contract with ABC, but proximity to the family, the facility fits the needs. Level of care fits the need. The facility suits the potential resident just right. However, you or the Passaro group does not have a contract with them. You will not refer to the facility, will you?
Not necessarily.
Okay. So my question is, there are pros and cons. I've been using you for 10 years, and I personally don't have a problem with it. But I'm trying to clarify the point is that if somebody says, oh, well, Ron is going to refer me to a facilities where he benefits. So I'm just trying to educate them and tell them or explain to them, if you don't have a contract with somebody, or with me, let's just say, I say, Ron, see you later, I don't want to work with you anymore. How will that affect the proper placement of the loved one? If you don't have an agreement with me and you know that this is the right place.
In that hypothetical, we run into it rarely. So my answer is the condition is that a lot of times I would call, it's a new place.
Okay.
That the family heard about. Hey, a place is opening up that I don't know about on the far edge of maybe an area that we cover, Thousand Oaks, let's say, in the San Fernando Valley, and it's a brand new place. Mm-hmm. What we've done is we call them and say, hey, I'd like to come look at it. I don't have an agreement with you. I want to preview it for the family. And if they don't want to give me an agreement, I have given them my blessing to go there because it is the best place for their loved one. My reputation, I always say, of our agency is much more important than any one placement.
So you would refer?
I would.
I see.
I would. However, what happens the majority of the time in those scenarios, if it is a place that for some reason we don't have an agreement with, and I preview it, they will say, we'll give you an agreement.
Yes, of course, it makes sense. No, totally.
They'll work
makes
it with
sense.
us.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure that people understand how this industry works, because 99% of people do not know how it works, right?
Exactly.
So a lot of them will be scared. So, well, if I call Ron, maybe he'll charge me. So I'm just trying to put the information out there to make sure they understand.
No, it's a very good question, because there are a lot of agencies that do not have a wide coverage in areas, and they will funnel them to a few places that they work with when the best one might be outside of that small radius.
So how would you? So first of all, how you said you have 800?
Over 800 active agreements currently.
So how often do you visit those 800 places?
When families call me, and the ones that come up, we go through our database again based on the care the person requires, the location, the budget, the environment. And then typically I will look at the ones in that particular area and try to pick out the best half dozen, call them, make sure they have vacancies, tell them about the person, and then narrow it down after I talk with the family and review it to maybe the best 3.
So do you?
And then I will visit them. If I haven't seen it, I have not seen all 800, but I would say I've seen well over 700 in the past 10 years. I've been, any place I haven't seen, if it comes up on my radar, oh, this is a good one, I haven't seen it, I typically will run out ahead of time and go see it. Boarding care homes, they open up all the time, and there might be a new one, and I will run out and go look at it because it.
So you make sure you vet them out before you actually will send a family out.
Absolutely.
Because it's not going to be a blind kind of referral.
I want to see that what they're representing to me, if I haven't seen it, is actually true in person.
Okay, so that being said, that leads me to the next question, because I personally don't even know the right answer or the appropriate answer to this. Can you educate us about the difference between referral agency and a placement agency?
Yes, excellent question. A referral agency, their objective, all of us get paid, like I said, if we help a family or a loved one find a place, we get what's called a referral fee. A referral agency, what they do, it's typically there's no telephone or in-person engagement. It's usually done over the internet and sometimes on the telephone. And the family will fill out a form online, and then they will get generated sometimes. I've seen it as many as over 25 different options. Assisted living communities, boarding care homes, sometimes even skilled nursing facilities. And the families get very confused. But the reason they're getting that long list...
To cover the bases.
Exactly. To cover the bases. They've monopolized now an entire area around this family where by osmosis, they were going to pick one, they earn their referral fee. The problem with that?
It's not personal.
Exactly. It's not personal, and possibly there's a better option outside of that area. A placement agency will take more time. They will do an intake, which is what we do, with the family member or the loved one, of what type of person it is, again, where they live, what their budget is, what type of care they require, etc. And then review all the possible options and narrow it down to the best 3 with all that criteria in place. So and guide them through the entire process.
From the beginning to the end, to the placement.
Yes, and before COVID, as you know, that involves where I would go with the family to preview places in person so that they can see it and get a feel for it, that type of thing, instead of just can we afford it and is it convenient.
So anything you would like to share in terms of having some horror stories about families placing them, or any issues with families or with the loved ones where they indicate one thing but in reality it's something else? It's not the true information. I mean, do you meet with the responsible person, or do you actually meet with the client, with the resident as well? How do you make sure that the information you're receiving is the true picture?
No. Very good question. So now, of course, we've had to reinvent the wheel with COVID. Everything's being done with FaceTime and Zoom.
Yeah.
In the past, I would either go to the hospital, the nursing home or rehab facility, or the person's actual home or apartment where they're at, to see them in person, whether they have dementia or not, because sometimes it's the smallest thing you observe when you're around them where something clicks, like, oh, this level of care they need, or this type of person that he is. I met a man once years ago. He was on a very limited budget.
Yeah.
And I went to his apartment, and he had dominoes all over his table. It's like, oh, you love to play dominoes? I live for dominoes.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I knew of a community where I always saw guys playing dominoes. That's all it took when he moved in there for him to be happy, the dominoes. So it's a very, very
Not
small,
Domino's Pizza.
Not Domino's Pizza. Domino's the game. Domino's the game. So now that the in-person element has been extracted because of COVID, what I do is I'm meeting with the family via Zoom, and then we engage. If they're at a nursing home, let's say, the case manager, the social worker, or the attending nurse will bring in the iPad and allow me to interview and see the person. And it's the same way the assessment is done. You know, like a place like RAYA'S, if you're going to accept them, you want your nurse to see that person before you take it.
Yeah.
So that's how that works.
So how do you categorize or differentiate between a good facility, mediocre facility, or not off the list facility?
Well, the ones that should be off the list, unfortunately, a lot of times I have to help them pick the best of the worst because the budget is limited. Yeah. The care is through the roof. I mean, someone who is obese and advanced dementia with behavior issues with a limited budget.
It's a problem.
It's a problem. There's to find a place for that, call me.
Yeah.
Because they're few and far between. So those are the challenges that you have. And then so to answer your question though, are there places that would take someone that in my experience they can't take care of? Yes. Why? They have empty beds. Yeah. But that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help guide the family to stay away from those places from experience, because moving a person to the wrong place is worse than not moving them in at all.
That's right. Yeah, it could be a disaster.
Absolutely. And you always have to advocate first for the individual that you're trying to help, and then drop down everything from there.
Yeah. So how long have we been working together? I know I mentioned 10 years, but how, actually, let me rephrase my question. How did we meet? I remember meeting you. I just don't know how I met you.
I remember it when I first got into the business back in 2011, and the first thing that I needed to do was go out and get agreements with a lot of the facilities in the greater LA area. And I was doing it 5 days a week. My goal was to see about a half a dozen places each day, 5 days a week. And I did it for months. And then that's how I started accumulating all of my agreements. And I found RAYA'S on the internet and came in and met you in your office, told you about who I was, what my objective was.
Even though I was very suspicious.
You were, I had no track record with you. Now you know me. You know all my good and bad points.
Yeah, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Right. I've earned my stripes with RAYA'S, and I know who to bring RAYA'S, and I have a lot of confidence. But that was when we met back in. It might have been late 2011 or at the latest early 2012 that we met in your office. Was it in this building?
In this building.
That's
in
right.
this office.
That's right. That's right. And you were a little hesitant, and I think your hesitancy was based on your perspective of other placement agencies and/or referral services with who they are and how they work.
Yeah. Well, that's where these questions came from. I just want to make sure that our audience understand that we're trying to first help. Now you, and obviously our students after you, we try to help the residents themselves. We're trying to make sure that they are being taken care of. Family is secondary because families don't live there. But a lot of time family will tell you, oh, I want something close to me. Well, something close to you not always is the right place for your mom, dad, or your loved one. So this is very important to let the responsible people who make this decision for the loved ones to understand that, look, I understand that it'll be much more convenient to place somebody next to your home that is close, there's less traffic and that, but is that the best placement for who you're placing? And I think that's the most important thing that people sometimes miss in placement.
Exactly. I always tell families to have the perspective of your loved one is going to experience living in this assisted living community or boarding care home from the inside out.
Correct.
They don't know if it's 5 minutes from your house or a half hour from your house. And I have hundreds of families driving half hour or more to places gladly instead of a place that's around the corner because their loved one is
Is
thriving.
Yeah, well, and I think that's really what they should take from this. Always do what's right for them, and then for you as the responsible party should be secondary, not the primary.
Exactly. And I'm not going to take someone in West Hollywood and bring them to Thousand Oaks and someone in Santa Monica and, bring them to Ranchos Palos Verdes.
Yes.
I'm trying to stay close, but, sometimes it is far away. But the most time, this is Los Angeles, there's a lot of options.
Correct. Well, that's a good thing. Well, Ron, is there anything you would like to kind of mention before we conclude our podcast, or anything you want to say? How much you love what you do? I know we're in very close communication with you at all time. You, myself, Monica. But for those who don't know you, is there anything that you would like to share? And
no, I got into this business 10 years ago when my father-in-law had a procedure at the age of 87 that we tried to talk him out of, and then he was bedbound, and we had to find assisted living for him. And that process is what opened my eyes to the need for a good placement agency. We actually engaged with a referral service back then, and it was no help at all. And so what I'd like to think is that my business has grown just for the same reason that RAYA'S Paradise has grown, because we first advocate for the person, the resident first, and then everything else. And then your business will grow if you do a good job for taking care of them. That's why I support RAYA'S. Not every person I bring you, as you know, is going to get along with every caregiver or like every meal. But if I know the way it's run, that you truly care about them and the level of care is there and their safety, I support it, because that's all you can ask for, is that they're doing that on a daily basis. And then if there's a little problem, they didn't like what they ate, or their neighbor next door is playing the TV too loud, this is life.
it's okay. Yeah, nothing's perfect.
This is life. And yes, I do. I feel very blessed for what we do. It's the type of thing every day. Every person is different. You can have two people with the same budget, the same age, and the same diagnosis, and they could possibly go to two different places because everybody's different.
Yeah, different background, different everything.
That's right.
Well, thank you very much, Ron. It was very useful, very informative, and very educational. And hopefully people will look at this and utilize this information for their own good if and whenever they need it.
Thank you. It was my pleasure being here.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks very much.